Well, I think, the issue that we've had at safety has been trying to figure out who's where and who's ready to start. I think we've went through three different guys, starting through 4 games, trying to figure out what the best combination is. Um, and I just think in the back end in general, there were a lot of kind of unknowns going into the season. You had a transfer corner that didn't go through spring that, was, kind of raw learning what we were doing. And so it was really new early in the season for him. So we were trying to bring him along. You had a guy, like Lamadric who, struggled in spring and then had a really good fall camp, but hadn't played in games yet. And then, obviously he, went down in the game last week. So just trying to figure out that rotation. We've made some changes. There's some guys I'm excited about, and I think just trying to settle the depth, to get our best players in position and make sure we have a two deep. I think that's probably the biggest thing too. So you're trying to move guys to see if, is Jaden ready to start? Who can help us? Abdul, Lamadric, and we're trying to figure out these pieces. And then at the end of the day, sometimes you kind of rob Peter to pay Paul because now you don't have a true two deep, and then we're running out of gas late in games. And so I'm excited about some of the position, one of the position moves we've made, and we'll see how it comes out, coming into next week. But I think we've got a better two deep in the safety room than we've had all season that I feel confident with. And I think it's settling guys at positions where they can focus on one thing. And, I think, Ahmad played great at nickel against TCU. Played awesome. He covered them the whole game. He got one holding, but outside of that, they couldn't get off of him. And so it allowed us to play some man, where we struggled and didn't really feel really confident that we were ready to do that against Baylor in week 2. But you're also taking one of your best players and arguably one of the best post safeties out of the post. And so, like I said, made some changes. I'm excited. I think it's kind of got some new energy and into the room, and I think it'll be some different roles for guys moving forward.
And at corner, I mean, does that too deep conversation kind of apply as well there too?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Marcellus
Yeah, I think then obviously Marcellus and William and Smoke will take. You don't you can rotate 3 guys for 2 spots at corner. That's one of the positions, but you got to have the 4th guy ready. And so Zay and Jay Holly, and then, Deuce be ready to go play there as needed. But I think him in the in the nickel role gives us length, gives us twitch. He's played it before, not here. He's a smart kid. And then I think him and Kyron are different body types, which is good. Now I know we got an elite man guy at slot nickel, and then we got a bigger, more physical guy. So you got different guys, and so we've been playing around with that and seeing how quick they could adjust and handle it. On a bye week, trying to get somebody trained up. I just don't think in the first 4 games we really had the luxury. When we realized maybe we were struggling early on at that nickel position a little bit to make some of those moves. And the sad thing is, I thought Lamadric was really coming on. He had a really good week of practice, and then the first play we put him in. I think long term he's going to be a really good player here. First play, obviously, pulled a hamstring, so he'll be out for however long that takes for him to recover. So, and then hopefully we get some depth back at linebacker. I think we're all hopeful that we'll have those 2 guys back in full go and ready to go. So, that's kind of where we're at. I thought we had a really good practice today. One of our best practices we've had in a while. I thought the energy was great. I think we've challenged them on how to respond, and I think we got a lot of kids that do want to do right, and we just got to be, we got to be better in situational football. I've got to be better calling the game, and we got to be better at executing, and that's what we've talked about. I mean, we gave up 267 yards on first and second down, which was essentially the lowest total we gave up on the season. I think Commerce maybe was like 248, 250, okay? So we played really good first and second down defense, back to kind of the level that we've played. The execution on critical down and distances was not there, whether it was, not running the game properly to contain a quarterback draw, which happened twice, whether it was, not containing the quarterback in a pressure, or just it was one thing after the next. And so, the week before we were 100% on third down. So it's not like it's not in there. We just got to execute and understand the importance of situational football. And, look, we knew we were going to be, we had some inexperience going into the season. It's frustrating because we've lost 2 games that we know or win a bowl games. But I also think we can grow and learn from it through 4 games, and we start a new season. And so it's about perspective. It's about how we approach this bye week and how we continue to prepare. And a lot of teams, I think there'd be a give-in mentality, and I think it's trying to teach these guys how to be men and respond to adversity. And I know we haven't played our best football yet, and we feel confident as a defensive staff that we can put a much better showing on the field from start to finish. And I think we lack of execution early in the game spotted them. 14 points at half that I thought was a 7 to 10 point type of a game that we should have at best. And when we dug that hole, Smoke makes a great play to finish the half, but it was like, we dug that hole to have to dig out of, and then played a solid third quarter minus the one drive, and then we just got to finish. I got to put them in better situations. We got to get better fundamentally. It's just. We got to make plays when the ball's in the air. There's things that I got to do better. There's things that our guys got to do better. So, I take the blame, and starts with me first, and the expectations and the job that we're doing, preparing our guys, and I know our guys will take ownership because I know they feel it too. So.
As you talked about, you're trying to sort through this too deep, but at the same time, gone up against probably some of the better skill position guys you're going to go up against all season. So how do you feel like those early tests could help this defense?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think like you look at it, I mean, we do have we have talented corners. I believe in our corners. I believe in Jalen Davis Robinson. He clamped them for 3 quarters. I mean, for 3 quarters, they did nothing against Smoke on the outside. 2 plays don't rattle the confidence. Now, do we got to do better in key situations? Absolutely. I think we got a lot of talent, a lot of upside in that room. And so to your point, yes, we've gone against some good skill, but we're going to continue to go against good skill. I mean, Syracuse is loaded at wideout. They got 3 really good ones, really 4. Miami, the list will go on and on. Everybody we play is going to have. I mean, we probably play more top 10 quarterbacks, I would say, on our schedule than probably anybody in the country. I mean, we just played 2 of the top 3 at least in the Big 12. Obviously, we'll play the most experienced in Clemson here in a couple of weeks. You've got Miami, Carson Beck. You've got Miller Moss at Louisville, who's played a ton of snaps. Like we play good quarterbacks almost every week that are experienced. So, we got to be battle tested, but we got to learn from it. And we got to get better through those adversities that we've struggled and came up short in. So.
I wasn't necessarily going to ask you about any moves specifically because you got by probably trying to mention Deuce. What stood out to you about him that could play that spot?
Well, I think when Lamodrick went down, I wanted to look at what are other options, because yes, we know Ahmad can play it, but are we taking our best player out of the middle of the field that makes up, that covers a lot of ground, has made a ton of plays for us. I just went back and, after 24 hours really, kind of processing it and look at it and just saying, okay, if we had done this differently, if Moses was in the middle of the field, what would happen on this play or that play? Just because I trust 3. And we can always play 3 at nickel. The worst case scenario, he can go play nickel without, having 2 reps of it. He's done it for 2 years. So, I think when you look at it with Lamodrick going down, and we'll see what time, when we get him back, then you've got, Kyron, you've got Jaden that's rep there. Well, I think Jaden's best and most comfortable at Rover, and we've got to get some snaps off of Ahmad and Zay. They played 100 snaps each in the Baylor game. That's not fair. And then, Ahmad goes into full body cramps after the TCU game. Like, I'm not getting him off the field. And so, it's like I told the guys, it would help. It would be a lot easier to get those guys off the field if we could start fast and play good ball to be able to rotate guys earlier. It's a little bit harder as a play caller when you feel like your back's against the wall. And so I challenged them to that. But, when you play Jaden at Rover, that gives us a good 2 deep. And I feel like that's his best skill set. He's twitchy. He's physical, but he's better to the short side of the field, kind of like Zay is. I think and he knows. I mean, Jaden's so smart. He knows all 3 positions, and he's going to be a really good football player for us this year and to come. And then I think between, we've repped J-Mo at nickel some this week because I do think he has a nickel skill set. But I've told him, I'm like, hey, look, you can battle it right now. Everybody's battling for a position, whether it's you, Abdul, Ahmad, whichever direction we go. So he had a good day at free safety today. And so then you look at Kyron brings a lot of good things from a physicality. He's a bigger nickel. He's getting more and more confident where it's less and less, bust when he's had opportunities. The first two plays we put him in Missouri State, he had two MAs, calmed him down, put him back in later, and then played a really clean game for about 15, 18 snaps. So it's kind of like, okay, now if Kyron's there, who's our other body and skill set that we know can play slot corner, and that we know can go win a one-on-one consistently. And I think Kyron's gotten a lot better, man. We put him in man a lot today because I wanted to see him in those in those kind of high value, high pressure situations. But you got to have different body types for that position too. Like CJ was a corner, but he was physical and twitchy like Kyron, right? And a lot of times you didn't notice CJ because CJ just did his job and played. He was one of the most undervalued guys here because he just took guys off the board and went and played, and you just didn't know about him because there wasn't a lot of balls completed on him, but there wasn't a lot of balls thrown at him. And so it's kind of like now you got two different guys, so whether it's 12 personnel, whether it's a nickel run game type of team, you can put different guys in for different things and trying to get Deuce trained up at that. But Deuce is smart enough that he can also go back, I think, in game and play corner. Like he's an experienced guy that started a bunch of games for us at corner. So trying to force that and see how we do with that over the next week and, make a decision coming into game week by Tuesday next week for sure.
How's Isaiah Wokobia been, what you've seen this year?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think more than anything, I've got to get some snaps off of him. I challenged him. We looked at, missed tackles as a defense through 4 games last year and this year, and we're about up 4 missed tackles per position group. Which is a lot when you think about it. It's essentially 4 to 5 missed tackles a game difference, which is the difference in a lot of times getting off the field and giving up potentially explosive plays, like what happened on Saturday. So, that's the biggest area I think that he's got to improve upon, and is just tackling because he's been such a steady tackler for us for so long. And so he and I talked about that the other day, and he'll respond. I have zero doubts. I think he's played good. I don't think he's played to the level that he holds himself to the level that he wants to play. But I've also told him, like, relax, let your plays come to you. And I think getting Jaden over there where you really can get it too deep is good for guys, even if it's just 3 plays here and there. Because, the course of a 12, 15 play drive is a lot on a guy. And, hopefully we're not in those much longer and we can kind of have the mentality, let's go get off the field and 3 and out some people. Because we're where we should be able to do that. We got to get that confidence back. So, I think he'll respond. I think you'll see him come play at the level of playmaking plays that he's made for us for a bunch of years, and he's had spots where he's played really well this year. Missouri State, had 2 huge plays in that game. Obviously, one was an atrocious call, but I'm excited to see just the depth and the rotation and how we're able to last throughout the course of a game moving forward.
Think about the defensive line so far. A lot of new faces.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I thought we affected the quarterback really well. I think, it was a different game plan than Baylor, but we didn't pressure a lot. There was a lot of 4 down front and playing. I mean, we were pretty simple. We mixed coverages and tried to let the D-line go to work. I thought we hit the quarterback a lot. We didn't have a ton of sacks, but I did think we affected him. So, I think there's some positives there that you've seen. I think if you look through the course of where we're at from week 2 to then week 3 to week 4, I think you've seen some good growth in there from Jeffrey and Terry in the middle, to Shaq starting to show up, to Wu, some of those guys, Kevin. Like, I think we got 5 D tackles that were able to play in games. And then, I think, we just got to get healthy at the edge position, trying to get Ja'Kai back to as close to 100% as we can. Challenged Isaiah that we need more out of him, and I think he'll respond. We had a great talk yesterday, and I think Cam's been really steady, like we knew he was going to be, and it would really help us to get Akil back. That's the one that you guys saw in fall camp. Like there was a different energy and level that he brought to the table that we have not had, with that unfortunate injury week 1. So hopefully we'll get him back by Clemson is kind of what we've been told. I'm hoping maybe a little bit sooner. So, and then, DJ's got to come on for us. Like that's we just got to have some consistency at edge, more than anything. Just trying to challenge those guys to get that out of them, because I know we can play a little bit better than we've been playing there too.
Anything else, guys?
Yeah, I'll get a couple questions. Bill Armstrong, Horse and Hound Magazine. I thought this was the best practice that I've seen since last year. Today, they had that kind of trash talking, kind of like
Yeah.
the kind of stuff you want. I haven't seen that in the games.
Yep.
On the sidelines, and I think the play that exemplified that the most to me was that flutter pass. That,
Yep.
Where we had 5 guys around the ball and nobody really wanted to go get it, and they're, I think it was McAllister, the one who reached up there and got it. I mean, how do we get the boys, the young men, to like start doing more of that? I mean, is it the seniors? I mean, today it felt to me like it was Jay Hud, Zay, Romello, even Duty, from his crushes, talking shit today in practice. It feels like we haven't had that a lot. Is that a confidence thing? Is that an attitude thing? What is it?
No, I think it's a leadership thing. I think our guys on defense practiced, and the guys that practiced I thought brought energy and yeah, I think like Coach Hundley gave a great word to him after practice. Like it's about us on defense. We got to play. We got to play to the level that we know that we're capable of playing, and not wait on anybody. And we've done that for 2 years here, and we got to get back to that. And I think that's older guys, really emerging as leaders, setting the tone, chasing the standard, like Coach talks about, us bringing the energy to practice as coaches and players. I think it's them having the confidence through preparation, them understanding that one play doesn't define us through the course of a game, and just being able to play when your preparation is right, and you've got the right energy and focus, then you're going to make plays if you're a good football team. And that's where we're at. We're close. I think we're really close. I think those type of practices need to carry over into the same type of energy and sideline energy on the game. And you know what? They're going to hit a play during the course of a game. Our goal is 4 less explosives a game, and that's the biggest area that we've struggled. We gave up 4 explosives on first and second down. If you do that, you shouldn't give up 5 explosives, because on third downs, you typically don't give up explosive plays, or we haven't. But we gave up 4 explosives on get off the field situations, and so that is execution, and that is focus in those situations. That is, accountability on the field. That's the guys holding each other to, what we talk about, understanding the situations, understanding the calls that we've repped all week, understanding what the offense is going to do, and that was a Jonathan McGill factor in years past. That was having a smart guy on the field that could know those situations and communicate. And so that's some of those guys taking on those roles that we've challenged them to, because at the end of the day, it's like we talk about, like, it's our job as coaches to prepare them and put them in the best situations as possible. Okay, that's my job. That's our job as a staff. It's their job to go make plays and execute at a high level. And if we're putting them in good situations, then they got to execute, and they know that. And if we're not putting them in good situations, then that's on me to call a better game and to put our guys in better situation and evaluate what we're doing. So I think what you saw today was a group that knows that they can be a lot better than they've shown. I think it's one thing if we came in here and we weren't as talented. Maybe it was more us year one where we're just trying to grow this thing, and we know but like we have underachieved is what I told them. We've got a whole level that we have not played up to, in my opinion. Does that mean we're going to get to the heights of where we were last year on defense? I don't know. We had a lot of experienced guys last year. We lost a lot, but I know we could be a lot better than what we've played, and we know that, and I think they know that. And so I think it's these guys more than anything deciding, like, look, we want to be great. We want to be coachable. Help us, show us. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's bring the energy, bring the juice. And does that mean it's always going to result in a win? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, that's the hard thing about being a competitor. But to your point, you'll see, hopefully the byproduct on the field as a result from how we're doing things throughout the week, and you'll start to see a trend moving forward. So, like I said, I mean, there's times in that game we played good defense for 2, 3. I mean, you saw us 3 and out them. I think it was one drive. There was 2 drives where it was like, man, great, good defense, good ball. Like, you didn't see us give up a lot of explosives. The first run play was well-designed play call by them. After that, we misfit one run, and we had one run that bottled up that they held us. It didn't get called, and it bounced, and we got to make a play. Okay, and then we gave up one explosive pass on base downs that was really not a great call. Okay, all right. So, outside of that, we played good ball. It's just execute those key situations. And so I think that's focus and preparation. And to your point, yes, the energy and confidence, it's got to be, man, because at the end of the day, they're the ones out on the field making the plays. And so, but like I said, I also think when you make potentially a position move, I think it can interject some new life in the defense. We've been, pretty good at stopping the run. That's something that we've hung our hat on here. And so I think, we're still trending. I mean, if you look at it, we've stopped the run relatively well for the two starting linebackers that didn't start the season, hadn't played. I think that says, like, okay, when we get those guys back, what's that going to look like? Because we're also playing three linebackers like the whole game, which is not, I mean, Brandon Booker's 215, 220, playing 70, 75 snaps a game. That's not very easy as a, second-year guy in college to hold up and do that. Like, we're asking a lot of those guys right now. I mean, we're kind of holding on for dear life till these other guys come back. So, I'm excited to see when you get the Alex Kilgore back in the mix and Barker, who have some leadership, who are like natural leaders, kind of some alpha dog mentalities. Like, what does that do, collectively to the group? So, I think today was trending in the right direction. But we got to stack days. We have a walkthrough. We're going to introduce Syracuse tomorrow. We got to have an awesome walkthrough. We got to have great focus, and that's got to carry into then, our walkthrough on Monday morning, and then all the way into game week. And let's go start to finish and execute at a high level. I think the other thing is like we have to expect to get off the field, and that was one thing that we talked about as a staff. Like when we take the field, do we expect to 3 and out and get off the field? Like that's a mentality, and I think. To your point, Bill, like it's confidence. And confidence is going to come from us doing it the right way, and then the guys realizing, and a lot of those guys have been here and done it. So, we can be a lot better. I think they see it and they know it. Like I said, you held TCU to almost your least amount of yards on first and second down through 4 games. So, you look at it and you're like, it's not like we gave up 400 yards on first and second down like we did to Baylor, So I think there are things trending in the right direction. Hopefully we continue on.
What do you like about him there, and what are his skill sets, that really kind of stood out to you guys in that evaluation process?
So it's something we talked about a little bit in the off season, particularly earlier in the season, earlier in the preseason. Is that a guy that we could see giving us some snaps there maybe at some point? And so, felt like if we're going to take a look at it, let's look at it in the bye week. Where he can actually come in and get a heavy dose of the install, the meetings, all of those things. He's had a background in it, doing it before at Texas A&M, so it's not like it's a blank slate type of situation. And he's one of our guys, high football IQ guy, So we felt like if he can kind of hold it and handle it on his plate, let's take a look and see. He's physical enough. He's got good length. He'll strike you to set an edge, but also can play in man coverage, play in zone coverage. So we kind of feel like he's got a good combination of all of what we look for in that position. So we wanted to take a look at it this week.
How much has he grown? Just because we first got here, an adjustment to be able to do that, and you guys trust him.
Yep.
It seems like it says a lot about where he's at.
Yeah, that was the positive of it. When you say we're going to do that with the young man, you got to look at the outside factors just as much as the football piece, right? Can he handle it? Is he going to be diligent enough to learn it, be ready to go? And the first thing when I sat down with him on Tuesday and talked to him about it, the first thing he did was smile. And he was like, Coach, whatever I can do to help us, because I told him we got to do the best job of getting our best guys on the field, no matter what position that they're in. And so he was very receptive to it. He started meeting that day. Been meeting every day since. He's also going to live in the corner world as well. I feel confident that he can do that. And like I said, his maturity from when he first stepped on campus to now is what we're proud of with Deuce. Because, as you said, to feel confident enough to put him in that position, that was a conversation that we had about a day or two over the weekend, and then made the decision going into this week. And a lot of it has to do with the way he's handled himself throughout the season last year and early in this portion of the season.
Marcellus Martin's guy that was obviously came in the spring, was hurt, catching up in fall camp. First, what have you seen from him? And second, do you feel like this bye week now allows him to really catch up and now take off?
I do. We're excited have always been excited about Marcellus. I think the big thing is on the outside looking in, it's hard to understand is he played last year as a true freshman. Awesome, right? That's a big deal. But then he got hurt. and he missed the remainder of the season. And then his injury kept him out through the course of the spring. So he's had I think he was an early enrollee there. So he had a spring, but he's had a full season and he's had a summer. You know what I mean? So he's still almost like a freshman, so to speak. There's some things that we wanted to see from him as far as him learning the defense, the expectations of how we play on the outside, what we do. Very instinctual player, does a great job of showing that in the process of playing. But I'm really big on making sure that those guys are able to be successful from a confidence standpoint, just because, the worst thing we could do is rush him out there and say, hey, you need to be this guy, even if you're ready or not. Damage his confidence, and then we've lost it for however long. And now we're working to get it back. That's the good thing about young guys. He's got high resolve, and then those guys are extremely confident. And so we're excited to see him, his rep count, play count pick up, and become what we thought he would be when we signed him out of the portal.
When you look at the development of like your younger guys like Zay and Jay Holly, like where are they at? Do you see one or both of them maybe getting an opportunity at some point?
Well, it's kind of like everybody kind of bumps, right? When you lose one, so to speak, in the room, even though, like I said, Deuce will play in both worlds, you got to make sure that those guys are ready. And they had been they had a good preseason camp, been kind of chomping at the bit, and so now they kind of get a little bit more of those, fringe 2 reps, 2 to 3 reps as far as group-wise, and get to put them in situations where they're taking those reps in practice that are going to prepare them for a game that are a little bit more real, so to speak. And so I think that in combination with the guys that have been playing already puts us in a position where we still feel confident with the guys that we have on the outside, and again, can continue to develop them from a depth standpoint.
Thought about your group so far this year?
I've been pleased with them, being honest. I think, earlier in the season there were a lot of question marks as far other than Kilgore, but I think week by week they've grown. I think week by week they've matured. I think week by week they've made more and more plays. Not perfect by any means of that, but I think, I think they've been playing to a standard that I've asked them to play to, and I think they've been executing at a decent level.
What Kilgore going down so early?
Yeah.
What does that do to the plan that you guys obviously
Yeah.
going into the year, just kind of throwing it for a wrench? Are you getting Sky back?
Yeah.
Just all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously tough. Kilgore's definitely, he was voted team captain and stuff, so he's definitely an emotional leader and a security blanket for a lot of people, just on the defense. And he's done a phenomenal job of earning that right. So not having him, that hurts a little bit, in the sense of close games and tight games when you need leadership on the field, someone who can calm everyone down. And Z's very similar. He's a guy who's played a lot of football, a guy who was, in a leadership role at his last institution and done a great job of earning respect of his teammates as well. So you lose, 2 of your more experienced guys with an inexperienced group in addition to their leadership and their calmness, that hurts. But as far as our plan and how that goes, it's next man up mentality. A lot of the guys have been waiting and wanting opportunities, and I think that's why you see them performing at a high level, particularly at linebacker, because they wanted that opportunity and they got it. Didn't care how it came or when it came, but you could certainly see that they wanted it, and for the most part they were ready for it.
On the flip side of that, now with the bye week, you're hoping to get both guys back.
Yep.
In addition to getting both of those guys back, your depth probably has more experience than
Right.
you would have imagined them having.
Right.
How much can that help you as you get
That is the flip side, right? When you turn the pillow over, it's a lot cooler on the other side. Like, that's what I had to remind myself. One of the things early in the season, I just pray over all my guys every year and just ask God to bless them and let them be the best version of themselves. And you don't always know what your prayers are going to look like. And just for them having an opportunity to play in that next man up mentality, like that's what it came. That's what it looked like. So through our staff Bible study and stuff, I kind of got reminded of that message that sometimes your prayers aren't answered exactly the way you think they're going to be. So because of that, we've gained a lot of experience. And now we have a deeper linebacker room where you got more capable guys that can go into the game And now and that pays dividends later in the year. You certainly rather them gain experience earlier than later. And when we hit conference play, you got to hang on guys who've never played extended amounts of snaps. So we've gained that depth, and I think they've done a good job of being ready for that. So we should have a much deeper room.
But, as far as, having a Kilgore, a Barker back, Scott mentioned the leadership mentality that they bring naturally. How have they tried to impact, the room while they've been out?
Yeah, and I think even Kilgore being a young leader, I guess the positive of it, he's had to try to find ways to lead while not being on the field, which is really hard for a young leader because so much of what you've done to get to that point is because of what you've done on the field. So him not being there, it kind of puts you in a little bit of gray area. So that was kind of the conversation that he and I was having. Hey, you still got to find different ways to affect the game, right? You still got to find ways to keep the energy up. Like, you're here, you travel, that's what's expected of you, and they're still going to listen because you've earned that right. So it was just, that was new for him as well. So, and again, on the flip side of it, he's become a better leader in learning how to lead not off the field.
Looking ahead to Syracuse, they were one of the best passing offenses last year.
Yeah.
Probably on track to be that again this year before Angeli went down. How do you now prepare for an offense that maybe changes scheme, but certainly changes that quarterback?
Yeah, I think, well, one of the things you got to look at is their system, right? Because they go from one quarterback to the next quarterback and kind of pick up, right where they left off. So, it's definitely a system that takes care of the quarterback, and all the guys are confident, in what their reads are and where they go. But what always helps the passing attack is a balanced run style, right? They do a great job of running the ball, mixing in tempo, running downhill, and, you fall asleep kind of trying to stop the run and not ready on a tempo situation. And it's going over your head, and they do a really good job at that. They're big up front, so they do a good job of moving people, and those play actions look a little bit different when you got big guys kind of coming off the ball. Because if you don't get going, those guys are going to get on you quick. So we're certainly looking forward to the challenge. We're excited to play again. Obviously we got a bad taste in our mouth from our last performance, but the only way you get a chance to fix that is getting back on the field.